Shea Norling from ESPN 1000. What's up? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Good to be here with you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I was excited to chat with you. I felt like before I asked you to come on, I was like, I bet you Shea would be cool to talk to, and I felt like there was a good energy. You were jumping on it right away, so I'm excited to chat with you, chat a little sports and radio and whatnot today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Whatever you got, however long you got. I am who I am. I'm long-winded, so I don't stop.
I guess I'm curious right off the bat. Background, like how did you get into radio, and how did ESPN 1000 come about? Kind of just what got you to where you are now.
No mystery. I grew up in Detroit, so growing up, I was always listening to morning radio, driving into school, doing all this stuff. Whether it's Mojo in the morning, Detroit's like whatever you think about Detroit as a sports town or as a city in general. It's so good at radio. Like it's one of the few things that city just excels at and kills constantly. Mojo in the morning's great. Mike Valenti on 97.1 The Ticket was who I listened to every day growing up, and that was the guy that I was like, that's the job I want to do. And there was never like a back plan. It was like, I'm going to do talk radio or I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to be homeless. So I just kind of kept working and grinding. I'm sure you know it's hard as hell to get in this industry. Once you get a job that's almost impossible to get, it's just as hard to keep it. So, I've been through the ringer. I've done overnight DJ work in Port Huron, Michigan, which is the smallest town you can imagine. I've done, board up stuff, just waking up awful hours, going in, running a board for like part-time shows even at this little talk station in Detroit nobody's ever heard of. And then I got back into sports radio. I just grind and doing podcasts, going out, trying to do what I could do. And I started producing a show called Big Drew and Jim. It's not on the air anymore. It was in Grand Rapids. And that was kind of my first opportunity to do daily sports talk. And it was everything that I imagined it would be. I learned a ton in that spot. And then after that, I left that job because my wife and I were moving to Chicago. She was starting a doctorate program here, and so we came to Chicago, and I was trying to get my way in. I started with Odyssey at their BetQL uh, startup, kind of the gambling thing, which is another passion of mine. I've done work with some handicapping services in college basketball. I, I think sports betting is super important as we move forward in what we do. Figuring out where you layer it in is the tough part, but I've got a huge passion for the sports betting side of things too. So I worked with the BetQL team, learned a lot about doing daily sports and content there. And then the opening for Cap and J Hood showed up on my screen. I always wanted to get back and doing local. So I applied, went through the process, and was lucky enough to get the job. And I think we're killing it. I like the product that we put out every day. I'm proud of what we've been able to do, some of the changes I've made, and some of the different things we're trying now. So I think it's getting a younger sound, which is very important. And I'm excited to keep moving and keep killing in the future. Yeah, I think, well, the cut of the day was kind of a station effort. Everybody put something together. The idea behind that originally was Cat sometimes says things that are so outrageous. But every once in a while will have just an insanely hot take or a wild capism or a capathetical. And so we wanted to have a segment that would highlight just how ridiculous the show can be sometimes. And I think what we found was if we make it the Cap and J Hood cut of the day, and we kind of try to highlight something funny out of context, something ridiculous or outrageous that happened. That's been a lot of fun for us, just trying to go through and find that and then play it back. I think it's great because, in radio, the audience switches every 11 minutes usually. So you have a totally new audience every new segment. So having the opportunity to, if we have new people listening at 9:50 at the end of the show, giving them a chance to hear something they wouldn't have heard otherwise. I like that segment a lot. And then the idea behind deal breakers, it's just, I think it's so important, and we all learned it during COVID. You have to break up the monotony of sports radio. Obviously, like right now, November 2nd, the Bears are just going to be the topic almost every single day, unless something huge happens with the Bulls or if there's, a managerial signing we got into a little bit today with the White Sox. But it's going to be Bears almost every single day. And the thing about that is, yes, it's the topic of the day. Yes, it's the hot thing. But it's not the shows that's going to be super memorable long term for the audience. The thing that sticks with an audience is the stuff like Deal Breakers, is the stuff like the Free Thoughts we did a few weeks ago. when we just kind of break loose, have fun, get the calls in, talk to people about everyday life. I think we learned in COVID that's just as important as the sports stuff.
Thinking back to sports talk radio when obviously bigger things were happening in life, but everybody was able to still make shows and just have the lighter, like you said, the lighter side of things happen. So, where were you in 2020 with the COVID tightening of COVID and everything? Like, where were you at that point?
I was still producing Big Drew and Jim. So at that point, I mean, that was when we really learned like we can't continue to do sports every day because there aren't going to be sports to talk about. We were kind of fortunate covering the Lions at that time because it was draft season. And if you know anything about Lions football, the draft is the Super Bowl. So that got us through the first few months of COVID, but there was a realization that we don't have Tiger baseball. We aren't going to have, you know, Pistons here. We aren't going to have the March Madness was just gearing up when it happened. And Michigan State at the time, if you remember, looked like a team that was poised to win it all. We thought we were going to have, 3 weeks of locked in Michigan State looks like a national title team content, and then it doesn't happen. It just blows up. So finding ways around that. I remember we did one. It was such a stupid segment, but every day we would come up with a top five things. And usually it was like sports history stuff, so top five players, top five teams, top five this, whatever. Whenever it came back around to me, I always tried to find a way to flip it on its head. So we would do like top five Lions, and I would come up with guys who played for like some D2 school that has a lion mascot that you've never heard of because I didn't want to do top five Detroit Lions. I don't care about that. Everybody else on the show is going to do that. I want to do something different.
Did you also do traffic and weather back in the day?
Yeah, I did. It was, I mean, that was another height of COVID deal where you got to get a job. Definitely something that'll pay the bills, and I wanted to make sure that I was staying in the industry because a lot of times when you leave this industry, you don't come back. So it was important to me to stay doing something in the business, and it wasn't my favorite job in the world, but it was a job that paid the bills and it kept me active and it kept me going. So I was fine with it. And it was good to just still be in the industry during COVID because a lot of people were not. I felt lucky to even be a part of it.
And you're obviously pretty well rounded all across the media aspect of things, whether you're behind the mic or doing all the background, behind the scenes stuff, dealing with all the production side of things. I mean, obviously, like I said, you're well rounded of a lot of different areas with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that the audio side of things is as important as what's being said on the mic. Obviously, people come to hear the opinions of the hosts. People come to hear the opinions of the people working on the show. I love ensemble radio, which is something I grew up listening to. If you listen to Stern back in the day, even now, like I said, Mojo in the Morning was always big on being an ensemble. The Valenti show now has become much more of an ensemble where they have like 3, 4 producers in that back room. I think every show that we put on, whether it's Waddle and Sylvie with Aki and Miller, whether it's Carmen Yurko with Black and Abdallah, whether it's Cap and Hood with me and whoever else, it's been very ensemble friendly. There's been a lot of voices on these shows. I think it's a sound that is unique to us in this city, and I think it's really important to be that way in radio. As many people as you can have contributing to the content at a time, whether it's through audio, whether it's getting in cutting sound, or whether it's contributing with their voice, jokes, whatever. I think it's important to be a jack of all trades or a Swiss Army knife, for lack of a better metaphor.
Yeah, see, I really like that aspect of things because I mean, I just do all this stuff for hobbies, so I don't have like a specific background in any of it. But just from listening, interacting with you all, like on Twitter, watching it on Twitch, talking with so many people from the station, I've been able to kind of pick up the little stuff that I've learned about just from talking with you guys, like Black and Abdallah or J.R. Strauss or you or whoever have talked about, just like the production side of things and just kind of listen or learning how to kind of put stuff together on my own. So it's kind of cool to hear about that stuff. And I have like an appreciation for like all the jack of all trades type of work that you're doing with the radio station.
People think we just kind of hit the button and go on and we do it, but there's like, whether it's managing the Twitter, the Twitch chat, I'm sure whether it's screening phone calls, keeping everybody on beat with the live reads. There's so much that goes into pulling off a show every single day. And it's busy as hell back there, man. I mean, it's like nonstop. Things happen very quickly. Breaking news yesterday with the trade deadline and the Sox making the hire, you have to be on top of it constantly, like, and while you're managing what's going out over the air, making sure we get our breaks on time, making sure everybody's got their reads set up, making sure the board's working properly, all of our audio elements are in and going to fire the way they're supposed to. Meanwhile, tracking so that we can have the instantaneous reaction. I mean, you want to be right, but you want to be first. So when Schefter puts something out, Bears just traded for Chase Claypool, we got to have that immediately. It doesn't matter what we're doing. Doesn't matter if we're in a content thing that's, paid for, whatever. We have to have that for our audience on the spot. So it's a lot of juggling balls back there. Oh boy, that's a drop. It's a lot of juggling a bunch of different stuff back there, and
Yeah.
making sure everybody's on the same page and keeping everybody in the same direction. It can be difficult, but I love it.
No, yeah, and obviously, like, at least as far as I can tell, it seems really seamless. Like, when you started with the station back in, what was it, April, or, like,
April, yeah.
earlier this, yeah, April. I was like, oh, that's a new voice, but it sounds like seamless. Like, you wouldn't know that basically, like, oh, Danny was doing this maybe a week ago, and now there's a new person. But because the show is rolling along, obviously, and I've gotten used to hearing, throughout the last couple of years, new people, Charlie, Jake, Tyler. I mean, guys that were new producers or whoever. So it's cool. It's seamless. It just comes together, like, obviously the way you guys are intending. But yeah, you're doing a great job.
What I think that speaks to also is just what we've built, whether
Yeah.
it's Good Karma Brands as a whole or ESPN 1000 as a station. We want content, and it's something that a lot of places wherever you listen, whether it's in this town and other cities, a lot of guys are just looking for ways to fill up 15 minutes, whether it's you get a guest or whatever. I'm not a big fan of just throwing people on the show to throw people on the show and fill up 11, 12 minutes or whatever it is. I would rather find ways that the people on the show, Cap, Hood, me, can contribute and have conversation and make a topic hot than, grab some beat writer from another town when the Jazz are coming to play the Bulls. That's, to me, not interesting. I think there's a way that we can make Bulls Jazz interesting if that's the game without having to go that route. And I think that, hearing new voices, whether it is me, Tyler, Jake, Charlie, whoever, it speaks to the fact that what we want is content, and what we want is, people who are comfortable when you're in that room. Your mic is open. If you have an opinion, jump on, talk, add to the conversation, be a part of the show. Like I said, ensemble radio to me is the best type of radio, and it's really important, and it's not something that's stressed everywhere. I can tell you, I've been at more companies that say keep your mouth shut than I have been that will say, look, if you're on this show, your mic is open and you have an opinion. We are a place where if you're on the show, your mic is open, and that is really important. And I think that's why you hear such smooth transitions, such kind of seamless shifting, no matter who's in the room.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with ESPN 1000 over the last couple of years than a lot of other sports talk that I hear because I hear you guys more consistently. But I was also blown away. I tell all you guys this that I talk with, but I was always amazed at first by the Twitter social interaction because I was not used to people, or at least like the on air talent maybe interacting as much on social media. So I was like, always thought that was pretty cool. And that kind of helps, I think, bring in that, those people that want to listen and stuff, they know that you're interacting with them. So I think it's pretty cool that you guys do that too so often.
There's two schools of thought there. And, we want to be sort of the voice of the fan. That's why we take so many calls. A lot of stations nowadays don't take so many calls. Like I said, a lot of people want to put guests on. A lot of people want to do more talking to you segments than talking with you. I think it's as important as ever. Radio used to be so much caller after caller after caller. I don't think that that's something we should lose. I think talking with the fans and engaging with the fans is actually an advantage for us. It contributes to the conversation. It doesn't take away from it. Sometimes you have a fan who calls in and obviously they don't know what they're talking about. I tell people, look, I like the idiots as much as I
Yes.
like the guy who will
Yeah.
call in and be really great. Because if you have somebody call in and it's just a total bonehead, but they're passionate about what they're talking about and they're having a debate with the hosts, it it lights up other people to do the same thing. Oh, this guy can call in, this guy can say this. No, I got to take two. And everybody kind of gets invested in the show and becomes a part of the show. You feel like, as an audience member, you're almost a part of what they're doing. And I think that adds to not only you listening to us in that 15-minute span, but you coming back to listen to us the next day and the next day and the next day. And that's just as important as making sure we're engaging who's on the radio right now.
Yeah, like Black Eyed Abdallah will say, "All calls welcome," and obviously that's like across the board basically. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the callers. I mean, I love it when there's some passionate or whatever the call might be, whether it's good, bad. I'm always curious. I'm always kind of like tuning in that much more if it's kind of sparking my interest in a certain way, kind of like a certain Bears caller today. Where Cap
I
was
know.
like, yeah, and Cap was like, and he'll call in all the time, like Black and Abdallah. So I'm always used to him talking and saying whatever he's gonna say. But it's just funny it's funny getting those certain callers sometimes. And I was just gonna ask you, like, were you used to maybe some of the zany stuff, the zany callers or things that you've heard, or were you kind of expecting some of that?
Well, Stern had the whack pack, right? You know what it
Yeah,
is when you get into it. Everybody, every show, whatever city you're in, you have your regular callers. You have your list of people. Some of them are great. Some of them are callers, and so you know what you're getting into. And I think we have our kind of our own whack pack right now. You know, Joey G is one who just
yeah,
always stands out to me.
yeah,
He's the greatest. That guy calls in. I'll put him on anytime. But you have the callers who are like, yeah, I want to engage with somebody who's high energy and maybe doesn't have such a good idea of what they're talking about, but really has a bone to pick with Cap. Because not only is that going to fire up the audience, it'll fire up Cap. And if Cap's fired up on something, the audience will join in. And I think that's just as important. The thing people have to remember is, we're not reporters. We're not doing this to inform. We're not analysts. We're not coming in to break down tape or give you, that deep info on the sports stuff. You can find that better elsewhere. We are entertainers. I'm trying to make your morning commute as painless as I possibly can. So when somebody calls in and they have a ridiculous take and they're just high energy, loony, yeah, they're going to get on because that to me is entertaining. The ability to hear this guy and go, what the hell is he talking about? And then listening to a host light them up for it.
yeah.
That's entertainment. That's what we try to do.
Oh man, I can't tell you how many times I've cracked up at certain whether it's calls or just something Cap said or whatever it is.
Well, and you brought up deal
It's
breakers. I mean, that's one of the big
yeah,
things with like deal breakers is meant to entertain. It's meant to
yeah,
change pace. There was one day, I think it was maybe my favorite deal breaker segment we've done yet um, when I asked Hoodie and Cap if you had a friend if you had a friend whose dick didn't work, since we can use whatever we want,
yeah,
and Blue Chew's not fixing this. Like, you're not going to take any pill, and you're going to and he's going to be happier. And his wife wants to be satisfied elsewhere. She's interested in you. Would you pinch hit for your friend? That to me was one of the best deal breaker segments we've ever done because it was so out of left field. And I remember hearing people say, I tuned in the middle of that, and Hoodie's joking about if Cap didn't have the ability to have sex with his wife, he would step in and pinch hit. And people are going, how did you get to that? What
yeah.
on earth are you talking about? That is going to keep a listener because you just want to hear what's going to be said next. That's why segments like that are so important to me because it breaks up, like I said, it breaks up the monotony and it becomes entertainment over, oh, the Bears traded Roquan Smith today, 3-1-2, which it works and that's been hot for us. But there are ways to break it up and have fun outside of that.
With deal breakers, I was wondering, is that like a court show theme for that like
Yeah, it's
the
the
music
old
for that?
People's Court theme.
People's Court. I was trying to figure out which one that was. I was on YouTube earlier and I was like, it's not Judge Judy, it's not Joe Bryan. It was one of those court themes.
It's the old People's Court theme. It's a
That's what
great
it
theme.
was. Oh yeah, it works perfectly for that one. And then also you have a writing background, right? Like with Fansided?
So I've done some writing, and
Gotcha.
I think I'm really good at it. I'm not in love with it. I like doing
Right.
this side of things much, much better. Um, the writing stuff, it's going to be hard to find a career in it. Like, if we're being
Right.
just very honest about the future of what that is, it's not a growing industry. And I think it's funny that a radio guy would say that, but it is kind of like there are more limited opportunities there even than there are elsewhere. Um, I think it's really important. The beat writers, who do great work, and there are so many of them in Chicago, I look up to and I admire because it's such a difficult job. And it's another thing, like I mentioned with this, it's hard enough to get. It's just as hard to keep that gig. I've done it a little bit. I used to cover Michigan State basketball. I've written about the Celtics before. I've written about the Tigers. It's just my passion lies much more in creating audio content and entertaining than it does the opinion piece. I'm more, and I was always more into the columnist bag. I didn't want to report. I didn't want to do,
Yeah.
news articles. I kind of just wanted to opine. So opportunities, I had to do that, but I can do that myself. If I really feel something that I want to write, Medium, if you read stuff on Medium, is a great thing to exist now, because if you feel something that you want to write, you can just write it. And if you have an audience, you can put it out to them and people will read it or they won't. But that to me is kind of the future of this, is doing it yourself rather than, the traditional go to a newspaper.
I guess journalism is would you say it's a dying business, or at least the way it's
No,
going, it's more of an maybe not dying, but it's more of an audio driven going forward.
I
So
think it's digital, actually.
digital.
Yeah, I think more, and maybe audio is a part of that, but I think
Yeah.
digital is the key. Figuring out, and it's something that we're struggling with in radio, and we got to figure out what we can do. Audiences aren't going to come find you anymore. It used to
Yeah.
be, hey, if so and so is your Bears reporter, that's where you go to get your Bears news. Audiences would come to you. Now it's so saturated. There's so many people doing it. You have to find a way to not only differentiate yourself, but get yourself in front of the audience. So I think when we see things like The Athletic, like CHGO is kind of the startup here in Chicago, going digital is sort of the future of that space. I don't think it's dying. I think it's evolving and changing. And what we
Evolving,
see
yeah.
from it, it's going to continue to exist. It's just going to change where you get it, how you present it, how you get it to people. I think it's super important. The writing side of things, I admire the people that do it. It's not really what I want to do anymore. I think it was big for me to do it when I did it because, like I said, I want to be a jack of all trades. I want to have the ability to step in and kind of do what I need to do. But now I'm so focused on the radio and audio side of things. The writing I'm okay with. Like I told you at
Yeah.
the start of this, I grew up listening to radio every day, morning radio, afternoon drive, talk stuff. That's what I wanted to do. I never really wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do this.
All right. So one of the things that I saw was you had this labeled or titled as in-depth, hard to find information for the Horizon League and the Missouri Valley Conference of College Basketball. So are you kind of like the statistician essentially, or the person that finds like the notes for the broadcasters?
So that was not a broadcasting job. That was a gambling job. That
Oh,
was
gambling.
yeah.
Okay.
That was I was working with a group called Right Angle Sports. They're a handicapping service. They do a lot of college basketball, a lot of NFL, a lot of college football, and the position I had was a researcher. So literally 20 to 30 to 40 hours a week, I would spend scouring forums of Missouri Valley and Horizon League basketball teams. I would spend, listening to podcasts, catching up on coaching interviews from local radio stations in like Wichita, someplace you've never heard of, like Evansville, Indiana. Listening to these coaches talk, trying to build sources, going on Instagram, finding these players. I mean, scouring to get any information I could get. I'd watch all the games, whatever scheme changes I was seeing, if I'm hearing anything coming out of their practices, if I see, early injury stuff that other people might not have on the forums, anything I could find to gain even a slight edge in the betting market was what I was doing. And that's kind of, I mean, that should be the process. If you're going to bet stuff every single day, which I don't advocate for a lot of people, I think it's entertainment more than anything. But
Yeah.
if you're going to bet things every single day, that should be a part of your process, is looking to find things that the book that posted the number may not have accounted for, and anywhere you can find that edge. I think the subjective stuff in there is getting much more important. Like the analytics are all out there. Everybody knows them. The book knows them. They posted them. They're aware of that stat that you think you're the only person in the world who knows. They know it. It's already been factored into their number. Occasionally, you can find some things because markets move a little bit off of where maybe they should be. That's a different conversation. We're so in the weeds on the gambling thing now. But I think like if you talk about sports betting, the subjective stuff, injuries, scheme changes, coaching issues, players who maybe are thinking about quitting the team or are upset with playing time, whatever it might be, that stuff has actually become more important. People think it's less important. I think it's become more important in betting.
Snorling you. And by the way, I like how you leaned into the snorling
What
part
am I
because
going to do?
was that was I mean that was all. Was that Cap that mentioned that the first time? Then you went with it from there, or did you already like lean into that?
I mean, so Hoodie told Cap that when he read my email name, it was
Yep.
Snorling.
Yep.
And Cap thought it was hilarious. And then Cap did it on the air. And Hoodie didn't want him to do it on the air. It was just an inside joke between the two of them. And Cap went on the air and called me that. I was taken aback. And at first I was like, boy, this sucks. And then as it kept on going, and then it catchy. So Danny called me Snorling. He walked into the room. Black calls me Snorling now. Aki calls me Snorling. I mean, all these guys, it just became the name. So what am I going to do? I think you have to lean into it
Yeah.
and make it a part. You can't get scared of it or get mad about it or ban it or do any of that stuff. I'm just going to lean into it and have fun with it. And I think it is, it is funny. And it's such the opposite of what I think my personality is, especially on the air, that it's like, it becomes a little ironic, and I'm fine with it. I mean, it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, at first, I think I remember that episode where whenever that was earlier this year when he said it, and you were like taken aback by it. But then I noticed that it's becoming more. You're like you said, leaning into it. And I was gonna say I was listening to Snorling You earlier, one of the older episodes, and it was one of the ones where you mentioned. I think it was in September, talking about gambling.
I mean, you're not going to win. The thing with it is like,
Yeah.
if you've listened to Snorling You all season, I'm getting fucking killed. This is the worst college basketball season I have bet in my entire life. And it's funny because I'm finally doing this like passion project deal where I go, or college football, whatever I said, where you go
Yeah.
through and you're betting college football, and I'm enjoying doing it. I put the work in. I'm doing this research. I'm trying to find, plays that I believe in and give them out. And I'm getting absolutely slaughtered. So I better be doing this for fun. I think if you start doing it and you get yourself in a position where it's like, they're outside trying to take my house. Honey, I lost the car today. We were down, $40,000. I had to come up with some type of collateral. Like, you never want to put yourself in that position, and it can happen in gambling. So I think it's very important going into it. One, don't get upset when you lose. You're going to lose. If you're going to do this every single week, you're going to pay the book. I mean, they're not running a fucking charity. And
Yeah.
I think like when you get, I don't really know how I'm trying to say it, but it's just, it adds spice to whatever you're watching. Like, if you're not a huge college football fan, I am. If you're not going to flip on TCU and Kansas State on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday evening. You're just not. There are other things to do. You can go out, you can enjoy yourself, whether you go get dinner with your family, with your wife, with your girlfriend, whoever. But if you bet on it, it becomes interesting. So
Yeah.
that's where I think like that's kind of how national sports moves forward, because you have the ability now to do this legally. Everybody from their phone on their couch can add a little personal risk into every game that they're watching. And I think it should be viewed as entertainment. It's not get rich quick. Like, maybe you do hit the same game parlay and you do take home 40 grand because you put a bunch of bullshit on a sheet and got lucky one night. It's no different than winning the lottery, but
Yeah.
it has to be viewed as entertainment, or you're going to lose yourself doing it.
Yeah, talking about college football, like you said, it's been a crazy ass season so far, and really the
Chaos.
NFL for
Utter
that
chaos.
matter too. But yeah, is college football your number one sport?
It is.
Where were you? What was your thoughts with the latest or the recent
Oh God, the
playoff
the
polls?
college
Yeah,
football playoff rankings.
yeah.
Who cares? That's my
Right.
take. I mean, everybody gets up in arms about it. Oh,
Yeah.
Michigan, why are we five? I mean, Michigan fans, shut up. Like,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I, as a Michigan State person, I hate them already. I think they're
Yeah.
absolutely insufferable by and large. But when you start getting into the weeds of like, why are we ranked fifth? We are undefeated. We are better than Clemson. Maybe. Prove it. Guess what? Ohio State is 2. If you don't beat them, you're not getting in anyway. So who cares? Like Tennessee, Georgia. Georgia fans are all pissed off because they're not number 1 and Tennessee's number 1. You play them on Saturday. Prove it. Like the first ranking edition, I can't stand. Everybody, like, it's treated as this great unveiling on ESPN. You get the whole crew, the Seth Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, all these guys get in.
Yeah.
They spend
Yeah.
8 minutes breaking down like Alabama 6. 2 more minutes talking about Alabama 6.
Yeah.
Just tell me that there's 6 and let's move on. No, I don't think that it matters. I think the first ranking, look, you have Tennessee 1, you have Ohio State 2, you have Georgia 3, you have Clemson 4. I promise you, 2 of those teams will not be in the Final Four.
Oh yeah.
Whether
It'll
it's,
it'll
it'll probably be Tennessee Clemson, but I promise 2 of those teams will not be in there.
it'll play itself out very soon. Like you said, there's games this week that someone could drop. I mean, oh, and then, yeah, that's the other thing. So obviously, I know you're a Michigan State guy and I'm an Ohio State guy. So obviously, I know they have their own whatever. But we could bond over the hatred for Michigan. So there was that too.
Yeah, we can bond over how my school's the only one that can consistently beat yours, apparently,
Yeah,
over the
yeah,
past
yeah. See,
decade.
Ohio State will have, they'll have that weird loss, whether it's like, I don't know, I feel like Indiana or whoever it was a few years ago, Purdue.
Yeah.
They'll always have the undefeated type of a season going, and then they'll have that one weird loss. But, yeah,
Or,
at least they've been able to.
I don't remember what year it was, but it may have been the year they won the national championship. Did they lose at Virginia Tech the year they won the title?
Oh, that's a good question. I know they definitely did lose to Virginia Tech, and oh man, that's a good
It was
question.
the season opener, and I think it was the year they ended up winning the title. It was with Cardale Jones, right? And I
Yeah,
believe that
yeah.
season they lost the opener at Virginia Tech.
Cardell Jones, that was such a random. I couldn't believe the way he was able to go in there late and
12 gauge.
when it mattered. And I mean, if that's all he ever does, and that's pretty much the case because he's been doing. I don't know. He's playing in. I don't even know what league this is. The Edmonton Elks in Canadian Football League. So there you go. He's in Canada, but he won where it mattered, basically, at least in college. But oh man, that's the other thing is like you can as long as you lose early, you're going to be fine most likely as long as you're a team like
Right, and that's
Ohio State,
why,
Alabama.
this year is interesting because it's the first year where Bama's actually in trouble. Bama did
Yeah,
not lose early. They didn't lose, some non-conference, and they started testing themselves. You go to Austin, you play that road game in Texas. They hadn't played in a true road environment in the non-conference in 6 years. They go to Texas and they play this true road game. They get taken to the edge by a backup quarterback, no less. Then we find out, hey, maybe their secondary is not actually that good when they get, torched for 52 by Tennessee.
yeah,
The thing about college football is it better this year? It's very frustrating because I feel like I can't get a grip consistently week to week where teams are at. It's been so chaotic. As a fan, this is thrilling. And I get that people can be upset by it because some of the brands, whether it's Bama, whoever getting, pushed aside, Oklahoma's out, Texas, we thought they might be back. They're not. Um,
yeah.
TCU is this darling, and I had that preseason. That's like the one thing I can hang my hat on.
There you
But
go. Yeah,
TCU is this undefeated darling that looks like they're going to win the Big 12, and if things break right, will be in the college football playoff. That's a chaos season. When you have a season where we can look at like there's an outside shot, you get Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, TCU as your college football playoff. That's kind of chaos. Like 2 of those are brands, Ohio State and
yeah,
Georgia, but you get
yeah,
2 Tennessee, TCU, and then you can talk about next year or 2 years, whenever it is, going to 12 teams. I still think it's, a mistake a little bit, but the chaos we'll get out of that in terms of the playoff games might be good. I think part of what we're seeing is the transfer portal, the NIL, the ability for different schools. Texas A&M tried it, failed, but Michigan State is trying it and probably looking to execute the NIL thing next year. It's giving opportunities for, if you have an athletic department that's willing to swim in the deep end of the pool and get some players, with the way that guys transfer out of schools now, Alabama's got this god awful secondary. They may have a bunch of guys from lower divisions transfer in and just fix it in a season. That could happen. But I think it's providing an opportunity where Michigan State types, even though they suck this year, Tennessee, all these types of different schools have a chance to go get guys and be better teams and be better going forward. So the 12 to me now, if teams are willing to swim in the deep end, isn't as scary. I always thought it would be very lopsided. Number 1, Alabama playing undefeated #1 Alabama playing like 3-loss 12 Florida. Nobody wants to watch that. That may still be the case, but I think we're seeing parity actually enter college football a little bit.
And you were right that 2014 Ohio State team that won it all was the year that they lost to Tech, like second game of the year, and they had Cardell Jones. So
I
there
know
you
my
go.
stuff, man.
I love deal breakers. I love the segment there. I love the cut of the day segment, and how you guys are driving content and being interactive with people on Twitter, social media, the crazy callers. I love all that stuff that you guys have, and so
And I mentioned, what I tell people is it's sports radio. Obviously, the Bears right now are it. They're going to be the focus day in, day out. White Sox hire a manager. We're going to hit on it. Those things are important. It's what we do. It's our brand. We have to get that information out to people. We like to react with fans to it. But at the end of the day, what we are doing is entertainment. Danny always says ESPN, the E is for entertainment. That comes first. So deal breakers to me, the cut of the day, it's stuff that is funny, it's quick, and it just breaks up the monotony of, oh, Roquan Smith got traded 3-1-2. What are your thoughts? Which there's nothing wrong with that. It's not bad. I like the fan interaction stuff. I like the getting people to call in, talk about the Bears, talk about the White Sox, talk about whatever. That's a huge part of what we do. But having deal breakers there where we can talk about, hey, what would you do if your dick didn't work and your wife wanted your friend to pinch hit? That breaks up the monotony and it gets people going, what the hell are these guys talking about? And they'll stick around and listen to it because it's so different and it's so out there and it's so off the wall. That stuff to me is just as important as the day-to-day sports talk.
and of course getting callers that can rile up Cap,
Every
get
day.
him going, get everybody going.
Listen,
Love
that's my
that.
tip. If you're out there in listener land and you want to call in and get on the show, rile up Cap. Do something that'll rile up Cap, and I'll put you through.
Oh man, it's the best. When you're doing shot or no shot, do you ever take it personal if they're like, what a stupid question that is, or do you just always let it roll off the back? It doesn't really matter.
No, and you've heard it. Cap will say,
Yeah.
"That's a really stupid question by you."
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care. Some of the times, I know I'm asking something. Like when I'm crafting these questions, a lot of times I'm doing it because I know it's something that either Cap or Hood will have a visceral reaction to. So part of it is not just creating a great discussion. Part of it is I know that one of my hosts is going to feel a type of way about the question that I'm asking, and the goal is to get a reaction out of them. So if they're saying something to me off the air, we all are friends. We all respect each other. We all think the world of one another. If they're saying something to me on the air like, oh, that's a really bad, dumb question by you, I don't take that personally because probably that's the reaction I was trying to get.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously you got the Tigers hat on. You are a Tigers
Fuck
fan,
them. I mean, if you
Patriot
talk
fan.
about a dead
Right,
body
right.
franchise right now. Thank God, at least we launched our general manager out after
Yeah.
a decade of being worthless, and now we've hired Scott Harris and got a Tampa Bay Rays scouting director. So maybe the future of the Tigers is bright. But boy, do
I
I
would
feel
think
like a
so.
loser wearing this hat, and we hit the reset button again.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was one of those. I don't know about you, but I thought there was going to be maybe not playoffs last season, or going into this past season, but I thought they were going to be better, and then they just basically didn't do much. But did you like the Baez signing or any moves they've made except for getting rid of the GM finally
Did I like the
and hiring a new
Baez
one?
signing? That's a loaded question. No, I did not. I was not a
Yeah.
fan of the Baez signing. My issue with the Tigers was, and the Baez signing was, my issue with the way that the reaction was non-locally. Locally, the reaction was more what I will offer you. Outside of Detroit, it was a lot of praise. Oh, the Tigers, they're spending money again. Look, the payroll's up. Do you realize they signed Javi Baez to this deal? I think it was 6 years, $140 million, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It got them to 16th in the league in payroll. There are 30 teams. So you are still below average in terms of your payroll after signing Javi Baez. And that is with an albatross and Miguel Cabrera on the roster.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually spend money. You cheaped out because you had the opportunity. The interest was there. This is not speculation. This is fact. Carlos Correa would have signed with the Detroit Tigers, long-term, $300 million deal. He would have put pen to paper. They didn't spend money. They cheaped out because they didn't want to commit 300 million over 10 years, not realizing the fact Miguel Cabrera's money comes off the books, so you're just replacing it. You're not actually spending more money than you already are, and your payroll is still below average with Baez. Like, it's inexcusable to me that, and that's part of the issue. Like, I understand. I'm happy Avila's gone, but
Yeah.
the fact is, the owner, Chris Ilitch, the son of Mike Ilitch, who was a big spender, who was a power spender, doesn't want to spend like his father. And I'm not asking him to be his dad, but if you're going to go out and tout that the rebuild's over, which he did, and come out and say, we're done with this, we're moving on to the future, we want to spend, we want to build, you're lying because you don't want to do that. If you did, you wouldn't be 16th in payroll the year everybody expects you to compete. When you have Torque coming up, you have Riley Green coming up, Mize and Scooble have arrived. I know they had injury trouble too. Everybody got hurt. Timing was bad, but all of these things add up preseason, right? To at spring training, this is the arrival year. The rebuild's done. We're finally here. We're going to play competitive baseball. We're going to try to make the playoffs. But you didn't actually spend the money necessary to do that. And that's a problem for me as a fan because if you don't care, sell the team. Get out. I have no use for you. As a fan, I want you to care as much as I care.
Did you like the AJ Hinch hire?
Yes, I did. And a lot of people, I've talked to Cap about this. He goes, I would never
Yeah.
hire him if I ran a team. That's fine. I get the cheating scandal, the stench is on him. The fact is, year one when he was there, he maybe should have won Manager of the Year because for the second half of the season, that team was playing like one of the best teams in baseball, and that roster was horrific. The second year, I think he got saddlebagged with kind of a raw deal. I mean, he ostensibly wanted Correa. He was at lunch with Correa the week that they were supposedly going to sign him. That Correa met with ownership. Hinch and Carlos Correa were out meeting together. So my viewpoint is he wanted Correa. Ownership said no and saddled him with Baez, who frankly sucked. He was awful. So that's where, yeah, I think the hire was good. I think they kind of screwed the pooch on the second season with him. I had expectations they would be better than they were the second season. Injuries hurt that. Baez being like historically bad instead of just regular bad hurt that. But it is what it is, and moving forward, I'm just glad they have some new pieces in place. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to spend, and it's a problem in Chicago too, where if you're not willing to really be the big boy and spend and get in the deep end of the pool, you're gonna keep doing what you've done.
Well, I think you're right that getting the guy from Tampa Bay and like the Cubs with their GM from Cleveland and Carter Hawkins, it's like they finally have these guys from these teams that have always been really competitive in the last decade or so, winning. Even if their payroll isn't high, they've been able to develop and put together a winning team. I mean, Tampa Bay almost every year makes the playoffs. Cleveland made a run this year. So maybe Detroit's finally got the right guy in charge.
I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. I'll believe it when
And
I
then
see it, but
maybe,
fingers crossed.
yeah. Like, I'm guessing you were a Dave Dombrowski fan, right?
Eh. I think the thing with Dombrowski is, and it worked. It may work for Philly. Though obviously they're in the World Series right now. It worked for the Red Sox. Depending on your vision of success, mine would be win a World Series. So it didn't work for the Tigers. But if you're a guy who's like, hey, 10 years of sustained contention, 2 World
Right.
Series appearances, then it worked for the Tigers. The problem is you have to know where he's going to leave you because I don't think he's especially savvy in player development, and I don't think he's especially savvy in the draft. I think he's a guy who, if you come in with an owner who's like willing to say, all right, Dave, we're going to give you 6, 7 years. You have unlimited resources. Get us a contender. He can nail free agency. He'll be really good in making trades to get established talent. The Prince Fielder for Ian Kinsler trade is one of the savviest fleecings I've ever seen. It didn't end with success, but Kinsler was great for the Tigers, and Fielder was terrible. So
Yeah.
going and getting that guy with an albatross contract and making a way to figure it out was savvy. He'll do that stuff for you. He's going to leave your farm system barren. He did that to me. He did that to the Red Sox. He will do that to the Phillies. But he might get you a ring on the way. So are you willing to trade? It's going to be bad when he leaves. Are you willing to trade a ring for that? I would say in most cases, yes.
Anyway, the Red Sox are that team they'll win and they get rid of the guy Ben Cherington and Dombrowski, whoever. Whereas the Cubs, for instance, or I don't know, whatever team, like okay, the Cubs, they finally made changes. Obviously, after 2020 or 2021, you know what I mean. Trade deadline made some changes, but they probably held on the guys longer than they should have. Maybe it's going to work out in the long run that they didn't sign Baez long term or Chris Bryant long term or something like that. But they should have had to get to this point where they had to reset and then do it all over again. But hopefully, this core will actually be good longer, have more sustained success instead of the one year.
It's an interesting conversation because I agree they probably held on to some guys for too long, but they've also set themselves up nicely. Where I think
Oh yeah,
if ownership proves it's willing to get big name free agents, and you know, I know Jed doesn't want to give out another 8-10 year deal. Kind of the reality of the business. You're not going to get the super talented guy unless you're willing to give the term. And I think if they're willing to do that, they have an opportunity to add. Like maybe they get Correa, maybe they go get Aaron
yeah.
Judge, maybe they go get some of these guys who are out there who are really talented, and they can insulate some of the younger guys on the roster. I think they're set up really nicely moving forward for the future. I actually think the Cubs, and they played well
Oh
at the end
yeah.
of last season. I would rather be a Cubs fan than Tigers fan right now.
Oh yeah, no, I agree now. Like I like the way, and even at the trade deadline of 2021, I was like, they got to trade these guys, get something
Yeah,
for them now versus nothing. So
they got
I'm
good players, man. I mean,
Jed, I
Pete
think
Crow
was
Armstrong is looking like
yeah,
he's going to be a star. They did a good job in getting back talent. I know that they didn't, get top talent necessarily, but they got back good players, and I think now they're in a position where they can add big league talent and be a contender, or not a contender, but a competitor next year.
yeah. I think with Baez real fast, I was thinking too. They were almost about to have that extension before COVID happened, and I feel like Baez. I think Joe Madden was talking about this recently that Baez needs a market like. Not to say he's not going to maybe turn it on in Detroit, but he needed that like environment in Chicago to like get him to get the best out of him, I guess. And I mean, we had it. He had his really two really good MVP type seasons, like what 4 5 4 3 4 years ago. But then it was the average. He doesn't walk. I mean, you see it now,
Yeah,
obviously.
I
But
think he kind of is who he is. I think he projects a little better than he was last year. I mean, last year was historically bad, but
yeah, right.
if you're going to swing at every slider down and away, I mean, what are you doing? You're
Yeah,
putting up
yeah,
non-competitive at bats because you
yeah.
can't lay off this same pitch. They could literally throw you four of the same pitch. I don't know if you saw it. There was a video that went around, and I saw it because obviously I'm a fan. It was a 7.5 minute video of every low and away slider that Javi Baez swung and missed on this season. How can that video be 7.5 minutes? What's the length of a pitch? A second?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I just think
But like you said,
I don't know
is
if it's the vibe, if it's the environment, whatever. I just think he's not good.
that's the thing. It's like that sounds like Baez in Chicago. When he walked, it was like, oh, he actually took a walk because he never walks. He would maybe take 10 walks a season because he was striking out. And that's why it's like 20, I think it was 2018, 2019. He had MVP type seasons. He was like a runner up at least in 18. And that was probably the pinnacle of Javi Baez right there. And you'll get the home runs and some of that stuff,
Well, he won't
but
in
I
Comerica
mean, you were
Park, and this
probably
was another part of my problem
yeah,
was
yeah,
when you're in Wrigley and you're a right-handed hitter, you're going to run into some stuff. And he was great at getting it over the left field fence when he was in Wrigley Field. When you go to Comerica, dude, that's not a joke fence. You're 345 down the line. You're like 390 to the gap, 420 to dead center. Good luck. Like
yeah.
he's got power if he's playing in a shoebox. In Comerica, he's got warning track power, and it's just that's what he's going to be.
You were at the Tigers like White Sox games, right? Where you get that game where Baez he was getting booed, hits that home
I
run,
was
and he's
not.
like shushing the White Sox
So
crowd. Oh, you weren't at that game.
uh, something really odd happened the first 2 years I moved here. Until the final series of this season, when the Tigers were in Chicago, every time the Tigers were in town, I was in Detroit. It just
Uh,
worked out magically. Where like I had a wedding or some sort of event that I had to be in Detroit for, and every time the Tigers were here. So I for 2 years, I mean literally 2 years, and they come here what 5 6 times a season. For
yeah.
literally 2 years, every time they came here, I was in Detroit. It was like you couldn't make it up. But yeah, so
And
until the final series of this year, I hadn't been at a Tigers White Sox game since living here.
the NFL has been ridiculous this year with just. I
This
mean,
is the thing with the NFL is this is what you dream of as an NFL fan is and I know we joke, well, boy, this league sucks. There's what, three good teams: the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs. Who else can even win? Well, I tell you now, the Niners, I think, are a threat to anybody in the NFL. I don't care about the Chiefs' loss. I'm willing to throw that out. That's an insanely talented team. They went and got McCaffrey. They've been there before. They have a good coach. I'm not a Shanahan guy, but I can admit he's a good coach. And I would tell you, like, the Vikings going out and getting Hawkinson. The problem is they still have Kirk Cousins. But I think the trade deadline made this league more interesting because you look at the parity throughout, where there's so many teams that are a game out, even though they're under 500, and feel like they're a piece away, or teams like the Bills who are incredible and are adding Nyheim Hines because they want to fix the weakness. Um, I think moving the trade deadline back and the level of parity in the NFL right now has just made it more exciting. It was already the best product, already the best and most exciting product in sports. Obviously, it's the most important thing in America in terms of sports. And I think moving the trade deadline back and getting this type of competitiveness where every game, like every week in red zone, every game is one score. It's incredible. That's
Yeah.
all you can ask for, even if the product sometimes, like Ravens Bucks, I did not think was a good game,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's a one score game at the end. Tom Brady might get the ball in his hand. I mean, that's you can't ask for better than what you get out of the NFL.
And even if the teams or even if some of the games suck, it's kind of intriguing now to see a 45-year-old Brady playing like ass pretty much, or the Packers are struggling. You don't really know. I mean, it's like it's hard for me to count Brady out, but I'm like
Doesn't this
they're behind the eight
doesn't this
ball.
feel like the actual passing of the torch moment? I mean, we've talked
Yeah,
about it so many times where like Mahomes won the Super Bowl. Oh, that's it. That's Brady's passing the goat off to Mahomes or whatever happened. There's been so many instances of Brady and Rodgers are passing it off, and then they just come back and dominate again the following year. This year to me feels like the passing of the torch. The old guard, Rodgers, Brady, Philip Rivers is gone. Roethlisberger's gone. Peyton's been gone. The old guard is being held up by Rodgers and Brady, and I think their
yeah.
moments here, like they're done.
And Russell Wilson's probably he looks gone too right now.
Yeah, doing high knees on the plane. I don't know what to tell you. Like that guy to me,
Yeah.
his issues go beyond football. He just seems like a loser.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the NFL. It's been pretty crazy the week to week. It's like I'm at the point now though where I'm like, this seems like an obvious win for X team. So this other one might actually win, and maybe I won't be surprised when the Bears beat New England on Monday night or whatever the case may be. Yeah, and I mean at this point, it seems like okay, this team is probably going to win. So when they lose, I guess I'm not surprised. Bengals Browns Monday night.
I
I
was on
guess
the
I figured the
Browns,
Bengals would win.
so
Yeah. See, but I didn't realize though that Burrow has lost every game against the Browns in his career. So maybe I'm not super surprised
that they
anyway.
were out Jamar Chase, and then the
Yeah.
thing with the NFL too is it's so, and we do this on the show, the NFL around the NFL overreactions. The overreactions to the Bengals losing to Cleveland was a bit much. Like people were pronouncing that team dead. The Bengals probably to me will be in the AFC Championship game. Or in the AFC divisional at least. I think Bills Chiefs, depending on how it ends up shaking out. But the Bills, Chiefs, Bengals remain to me the top three teams in the AFC.
I agree. Yeah, Bengals, Chiefs, Bills, the NFC. I mean, obviously Philly. I guess Minnesota's up there right now. I
No,
guess
Minnesota's not. I'll tell you,
they're
I'm
not.
telling you, man, that
Yeah.
team is absolutely fraud. I mean,
Oh,
the
I
six and
agree.
one
Yeah.
looks good, but and
Yeah.
I've said this before. Do you remember a few years ago the Steelers started 11-0, and if you watched the games,
Yes.
that's not an 11-0
Yes.
football team. That's
I think it was last year, wasn't it?
no, I think it was 19
2 years
maybe,
ago.
or maybe 21. It might have been 21.
A couple years
Right,
ago. Couple years. Yeah.
20 or 21. They start 11-0.
Yeah.
Everybody's really high on them if you're a Pittsburgh fan especially. But watching that team, you could tell they're not that good.
I remember that. Yeah.
And they ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs. So you see a team like the Bengals at 4-4, and you go, "Oh, they stink." Well, I actually think they're much better than the Vikings. You see the Vikings at 6 and
Yeah.
1. I think they stink. And like when you have Kirk Cousins, who then Cap will tell you, well, that you just find an argument, a stat to back up any argument. He ranks 30th among 33 qualified quarterbacks in QBR. He ranks 33rd
Mhm.
in air yards per completion. He's not good. And if you're telling
Yeah.
me like
Yeah.
if the Niners come walking into that building for a divisional round game or a wild card round game because the playoffs have expanded now, you telling me that the Niners wouldn't be favorites on the road in that game? Because I think they would be. I don't buy the Vikings. I really think if you look at the NFC, you have the Eagles, you have the Niners. I,
Will the
I think
Rams
that's it.
rebound? Are
No,
they
they're dead.
done?
I mean that the thing with the
Yeah,
Rams too is I had preseason that they were going to be awful, and people were like, "What are you
right.
crazy?" When you have your quarterback as old as he is and as injury ridden as he's been throughout his career, getting secret injections that are underreported in his shoulder because his arm's going to fall off in the preseason. Yeah, I think you're done. Like I just, and then we see him go out on the field. He looks like he's lost the arm strength. He looks like he's lost the accuracy, which wasn't great already. He just kind of looks dead, and I think as a result, the team is
Yeah.
dead.
And I mean, there were the rumors after the Super Bowl last year that Sean McVay, Aaron Donald could retire, which they didn't,
Yeah, maybe he
obviously.
should have.
But why would you Yeah, why would I mean, like, why would they retire if their team was set up to keep going, right? Like, you wouldn't want to retire
Well,
if in your prime like that.
that's the
If
issue with Brady too. Like you get walked off by
yeah,
Stafford in the divisional round, and
yeah,
then you come back because you feel
yeah,
like, well, we still have a good enough team. But maybe Brady was right when he did retire. Maybe he was right, and like maybe Aaron Donald
yeah,
when he was
yeah.
thinking about I'm going to go out on top. Maybe he was right because he's looked good. He hasn't looked like his game breaking self really this year.
Yeah, I don't know. The NFL has been it's been crazy week to week. It's crazy how fast the season's already going. We're already in
I know
November now.
it feels like it was a week ago. I was waiting and waiting and waiting for football, and now it's almost over.
College football has been insane. I know no one really they make a big deal about the unleashing the first playoff poll, but it'll all work itself
Yeah.
out. Teams will win and all that will play out. So I don't know. We'll see if Ohio State can actually not lose to some random team.
Well,
They'll probably beat Michigan and then lose some random team before that.
the plus for Ohio State is, and I felt this way all season. They have yet to really display it, but I feel like that's ultimately
Yeah.
a team that's out for blood. When they lose to Michigan the way they did, and then you have the fight the way that they did after that game and at halftime of that game. That's a team that's looking for revenge, and I have a feeling Michigan coming into the shoe this year is going to get a lot of revenge.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I cannot see them losing two in a row. Before I let you go, curious, what is your favorite sports memory or something that you've experienced?
It's a good question. The one that jumps to mind first in 2006, the Tigers went to the playoffs, went to the World Series. The year before, they won like 73 games, I think. Um, and I wasn't at the game when Maglio hit the walk off home run to send them to the World Series, but I was at a campground with my dad. This is a moment that to me like always stands out as being what sports are really about. It was we were at a campground. We had some friends with us, some kids I went to school with were there, and he was he pulled his truck up because the Tigers were on, but we didn't have a TV. Back then, like you didn't have I know it's back then, it's 2006. Back then you didn't have like the portable television you could be watching or you couldn't watch on your phone, whatever. You had to listen on the radio, which is still so unique to baseball, but that's a different conversation. So he pulled his truck into where we were all sitting around a table playing cards, doing these different things. He opens all the doors, turns his stereo as loud as it'll go, and we listen to the Tiger game. And then the walk-off home run happens. And I remember hearing that call and all of us just jumping up, yelling. We're all like, celebrating the way you do. And then I remember listening around the campground, and everyone else in the campground was also yelling, celebrating, cheering, jumping around. And it was kind of just one of those moments where it's like I didn't watch the game, I wasn't at the game, but we were fully invested, and there was like a community experience way out in the woods, camping someplace. And that
That
was
is
one of those
cool.
things where it's like sports really brings you together no matter where you are, what you're doing.
What's your career? I mean, I know you love what you're doing right now, but like, where do you see yourself in like I don't know, 5 years, 10 years? Like, what's your career? Still, your career aspiration, I
I,
guess.
I never want to get in the weeds of where I'll be, because if you told me I'd be doing
Yeah,
this in Chicago 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been like, I wouldn't have not believed you, but I'd be surprised. Um, Now I can't imagine doing it anywhere else at this point. But 5 years from now, I mean, the goal for me has always been to host radio. So I love what I'm doing now, and the opportunity to produce the show has been incredible. In 5 years, will I still be a producer? Maybe. I would be fine with that. I love what I do. I love producing shows every day. But 5, 10 years, I would like to be hosting daily radio.
that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll give you a shot. I mean, Tyler's doing hosting in addition to
Yeah,
production,
Black and Abdallah.
producing and
If
whatever.
there's a good
So,
place to be to
yeah,
do this, I mean, Black and Abdallah had
yeah,
this role. They moved up into doing it. You know, Aki has his shot. Meller has his shot. So I think I feel really comfortable being at 1000, and I'm happy to be there. And, you know, it's been a great experience, and it's been a lot of fun for me.
yeah. But like I was saying before, it's seamless for me. Like when I hear whoever it is back there, whether you're on air, specifically on air, or you're a producer, whatever. Like it's all seamless. So you guys are doing great. You're killing it. Yeah, it's really cool to hear you guys all the time. I love all the bits, the segments, the another like the cut of the day, like the little stuff. That's what you remember is some of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, thanks again for chatting with me and putting up with any technical difficulties that came up.
All good, man. Thanks for having me
But
on. This was fun.
yeah, definitely.